In the book Tuesdays with Morrie, Mitch Albom visits a dying friend, professor, mentor. During these visits, Morrie teaches Mitch some important lessons about what matters most in life. On one particular visit, Morrie is very frail, in obvious pain. He asks Mitch to rub his aching feet with salve. When we're infants, says Morrie, we need people to survive. When we're dying, we need people to survive. But here's the secret. In between, we need each other even more. Mitch nods and responds with a quote that he has heard Morrie say many times. We must love one another or die. Morrie loses patience with Mitch. Yeah, but do you believe that? Does it apply to you? Mitch is stunned and defensive as he confesses he doesn't know what he believes. The world he lives in doesn't allow for the contemplation of spiritual things. Morrie pushes a little further. You hate that word, don't you? Spiritual. You think it's just touchy-feely stuff, huh? I just don't understand it, says Mitch. We must love one another or die, says Morrie. It's a very simple lesson, Mitch. We must love one another or die. The poet W.H. Auden wrote that line as the last line of a poem entitled September 1st, 1939, the very opening day of World War II. Later, Auden disowned this line of the poem. In fact, subsequent editions of the poem had a revised sentence, we must love one another and die. The original sentiment carried a hint that there is a power greater than war, but the revised version carries no hope. We can love, but it makes no real difference. Life is ultimately tragedy. Perhaps Auden was embarrassed by its emotional earnestness. But in another poem, Auden wrote these words, if we really want to live, we'd better start at once to try. If we don't, it doesn't matter, but we'd better start to die. A vine connects the nutrient earth with the fruitful branches. Jesus said, I am the true vine. The word for true in Greek is kind of an unusual word. It translates, remember not to forget. Both Auden and Jesus remind us not to forget this essential lesson. Those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit, because apart from me, you can do nothing. Unless we are connected to God and to one another, there can be no life in us. We see a powerful example of what a disconnected life looks like in the 15th chapter of Luke's Gospel, the story of the prodigal son. By asking his father for his inheritance, the younger son is in effect requesting that he no longer has to receive the inheritance as a gift. He asks to possess it, to dispose of it and enjoy it. The son wants to owe nothing to his father, and above all, not to owe him a gift. He asks to have a father no longer, the inheritance without the father or the gift. And he ends up in the wilderness, having exhausted everything, and he is hungry. From the father's perspective, if anyone is missing, the life of the community is diminished. When the elder son, in anger, refuses to welcome this son of yours, the father invites him into the celebration by reminding him of his relationships. Son, you are with me always, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to rejoice and celebrate because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found. In Luke's Gospel, the table is the place of reunion and restoration. Today's gospel takes place at the Last Supper. It's the beginning of chapter 15 in John's gospel. And it's the start of a long teaching at the Last Supper, chapter 15, 16, and 17. Now, this teaching actually may have been inserted later into the Gospel of John because the Passion begins at the beginning of chapter 18. But chapter 14, just before today's verses, ends this way. Jesus said to his disciples, "Rise, let us be on our way." Well, of course, "let us be on our way" is the plural, you. But you and I tend to hear this injunction in the singular, you. I want to borrow language from my northern-bred cousins who now live in the South. They say y'all. Although I think there might be a distinction. Y'all might be singular and all y'all might be plural. But I'm going to use y'all as the plural. And so we would read this way. If y'all are remaining in me and my words would remain in y'all, whatever y'all would be wishing, ask, and they shall be or come to be for y'all. In this thing my Father is glorified, that y'all would be bearing much fruit, and you all would be or come to be my disciples. If you've ever tried to untangle a grapevine, you know it's nearly impossible to separate the vine from the branches. Or to push the metaphor, once the grapes are crushed, it's impossible to separate the juice of one grape from another. We put a drop of water in the chalice. It's impossible to take the drop of water out again. In the same way, Jesus enters into our humanity. We say it this way, by the mystery of this water and wine, may we come to share in the divinity of Christ, who humbled himself to share in our humanity. The Latin inscription on our parish chalice is Ego sum vitis vos palmites, which we all know translates, I am the vine, you are the branches. The chalice was a gift from Joe Klaus, who died in May of 2000. Joe, as a young man, had been ordained a priest. Every person is a gift to this community, and the gift of each person contributes to the good of the whole. It's only when we bind ourselves to one another as branches to the vine that we are able to bear much fruit. Jesus reminds us, apart from me, you can do nothing. God is more like a verb than a noun. 1 John reminds us, little children, let us love not in word or speech, but in truth and action. God is Trinity, a flow of relationships among persons. So God is community. And whoever abides in community, family, parish, friendship, hospitality, abides in God, and God abides in them. When we live inside of these relationships, God lives inside of us, and we live inside of God. In gathering around the person of Christ, we are drawn out of our separate selves so that we can begin to live in charity, joy, peace, patience, goodness, long-suffering, faith, constancy, mildness, and chastity. Only by being connected to Christ is it possible to live with each other beyond differences, fears, and incompatibilities. Father Ron Rollheiser says that the type of bond that withstands the test of time within marriage, family, religious community, civic community, and friendship is ultimately rooted in something beyond liking each other or working for a common cause or sharing a bloodline, a neighborhood, a house, or even a bed. Community means remaining connected even when we don't like each other, aren't attracted to each other, and struggle with hopeless differences. It's very hard to live this way in a culture of individualism that invites us to believe that we are self-sufficient, that we can have community and family on our own terms, and that we can have God without dealing with each other. But God is community, and only in opening our lives in gracious hospitality will we ever understand that. We must love one another or die. It's really a simple lesson.